Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I hope you all had the happiest of holidays, and I hope the new year brings you all the best of luck. This year, my goal for the channel is to reach 1,000 subscribers. Once I hit that mark, I'm going to do a 1,000 sub special, where you guys guess how long it will take for me to get muted and kicked from Nathan Oakley's daily debate channel. I'll go on there and do my utmost to get him so worked up that he'll kick me. Whoever gets the closest will win a prize. A prize that has yet to be determined, although I do have an idea that I think you guys will like, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so on to today's topic. Today's video is one that was spurred by a commenter that I had the pleasure of chatting with, who just loved Nathan Ice Pick in the Air Oakley. He's memorized all of his catchphrases and repeats them with the skill of the most trained parrot or the most broken record. I must warn you ahead of time, this video contains a lot of Nathan Oakley, unfortunately. So be sure to get rid of anything long and pointy in your vicinity, because we don't want anyone to end up going to the hospital because they accidentally poked themselves in the ears trying to make it stop. If at any time you feel the urge to gouge out your eardrums, I recommend turning down the volume, or maybe pausing the video and taking a walk outside or something. Get some fresh air, you know. Anything you can do to lessen the damage of the sound of his voice. He really is the human equivalent to nails on a chalkboard. So the commenter asked me to answer his 8 housekeeping questions and gave me the link. At that point I was really tired of talking to him because he just kept repeating himself, and it was almost as if I was talking to Nathan himself, which made me a bit nauseous. So I decided that instead of that, I would just record the housekeeping portion and make a video about it. So here goes.
Whenever you're viewing something like a boat, like quote unquote going over the horizon, there is curvature. So that boat should look as though it's at a different angle. And so should any building that you're seeing. It should be tilted away from you, even if it's a holographic projection.
And that was my point all along, the tilt. Did you guys not get it?
Right, so if you're viewing something from like 80 miles away, it should be significantly tilted away from.
Now this is an interesting one that I haven't really heard many flurfs say before. Tilt, just like curvature, you don't see it going away from you. And at 80 miles, there's so much atmospheric distortion and the object is so small that there wouldn't really be much perceptible tilt. Although he is right, there would be a slight tilt away from you. This is common among flurfs. They really have an inability to grasp scale. 80 miles on a planet the size of Earth isn't very far at all.
All right, let's move on.
But wait, hold on. This should be curved away. Like, that's only because we're reifying our model.
Yeah, should be on their model, not in reality. Well done. I should have pointed that out first, really. Good job someone's awake.
One thing Nathan and his sycophants love to say is reification fallacy. And just like most things, they aren't applying it correctly. A reification fallacy is when you treat an abstract, like a thought, as if it were a real concrete object. Nathan Oakley loves to say that our model is a reification fallacy, except the model part of it indicates that it's based on evidence and observation, things that aren't abstract. This is precisely why there is no flat Earth model.
Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15-degree-per-hour drift.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
One thing I've said time and time again is that I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer or an astronomer, and I don't have a degree in this. So what do people like me do when we want to actually learn something? We go to YouTube. That's something every flurf can agree with me on. Here's a clip of a video from a guy named David Butler. His channel is awesome. and I suggest you all check it out. He has many instructional videos on his channel about the universe and how it works, and he's much more capable at explaining this than I am. Now, before you flurfs say that this isn't proof, it's not. It's math. And as we all know, math is lies from the devil. But if you get over that and actually use it to calculate things, you'll find that it works out, and will give you distances and sizes of things in the sky. I know, it's crazy. Anyway, here's David Butler to explain this to us.
As Venus orbits the Sun, it gets further away from the Sun in the sky, reaches a maximum separation from the Sun, corresponding to the greatest elongation, and then starts going towards the Sun again. By making observations of Venus in the sky, one can determine the point of greatest elongation. At this point, the distance between the Earth and Venus can be determined by a parallax at 104 million kilometers, or 64.6 million miles. The line joining Earth and Venus will be tangential to the orbit of Venus. Therefore, a line from Venus to the Sun at this point of greatest elongation is 90 degrees from the line between Earth and Venus. Drawing the line between the Earth and the Sun fills out the triangle. We call the length of this line, that represents the distance between the Earth and the Sun, an astronomical unit, or AU for short. The angle at the Earth is easily measured, 46.1 degrees. Now, using trigonometry, one can determine the distance, 150 million kilometers, or 93 million miles. Once the distance between the Earth and Sun is known, one can calculate a number of other parameters. We know that the Sun subtends an angle of just about 1/2 degree. As we did with the Moon, we can calculate the diameter of the Sun at 1.4 million kilometers, or 860,000 miles. The surface area at 6.16 trillion square kilometers, and the volume at 1,440,000 trillion cubic kilometers.
What's the medium that that these lasers are traveling through?
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Ever heard of Michelson-Morley or Michelson-Gale? They prove that light doesn't need a medium to travel through, unlike sound.
Look, without the container, there can be no pressure. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. Entropy would increase. It's a violation of a natural law, the second law of thermodynamics, to assert that the sky is a vacuum. Entropy would increase. We'd have no gas to breathe. The available volume would be outer space. That's what the gas would want to fill. It doesn't, therefore the sky is not a vacuum.
There it is. I was wondering how long it would take before he'd throw his misunderstanding of the second law of thermodynamics into the mix. He can't go a day without saying it, and I'd be willing to bet that sometimes at dinner he just blurts it out for no apparent reason. He's sitting there alone with his dog and just starts into it, and his dog's probably like, "The hell, man, that's not how it works. It has to be a closed system for that to apply." I only assume he's there with his dog because I highly doubt he's married with kids, because that would indicate that people can actually stomach being in his presence. Anyway.
Moving on. Any scientific evidence of gravity? Has anybody acquired any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics in their entire histories?
What kind of question is that? Notice how flat earthers ask their questions? They don't say, "Please explain to me how the atmosphere works next to a vacuum." They say, "Demonstrate an atmosphere with a gradient due to gravitational effect next to a vacuum." Basically, demonstrate Earth on Earth. They do this on purpose. Not to test anything, but to stump people with intentionally misleading questions that are worded to be confusing to people who would otherwise be able to answer them immediately. I can explain how our atmosphere works, basically. But can I demonstrate it? No. Anyway, just off the top of my head, one hypothesis that was correct was Einstein predicting the existence of gravitational waves. The existence of such waves were detected by the scientists at LIGO on September 14th, 2015.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed, of course, spherical Earth?
Geologists take measurements of seismic waves traveling through the Earth. The Earth has a magnetic field, so the inner core must be solid, surrounded by a molten outer core. No, we haven't been down there. And no, we haven't drilled to it. Some things can be inferred by information gathered by scientific observations that is reliable and can be used to form models. When the model works, you can assume that your inference was correct. That's how science works.
Well, it is funny how I noticed, like when I asked somebody on the Discord the other day if the Earth is a closed or open system, and he said it's approximately closed. There's no, it's not empirical. There's a
that was Zanuck, right?
I don't know if
Was
it's
that
Zanuck
Zanuck?
or
It was
Say that again, Paul.
approximately closed.
Can you repeat
How
yourself,
can
Paul?
facts be relative?
Hold on, Arwin and Chocolate. Can you repeat
Yeah,
yourself, Paul?
they're trying to skirt
well
between
done,
open
Chocolate and
closed
Arwin.
systems.
Hold
So
on one
now we've-
second.
I love when Nathan Oakley has to play the role of a special ed teacher just to keep his sycophants in line.
Get it?
Paul,
Sorry.
can you repeat yourself, please?
Me? Okay. I said Zanuck or Fappy, I don't remember who it was, said that, asking if the Earth was an open or closed system. They said, well, it's approximately closed. Now think about that. They've fudged the numbers. They've left a gray area. They've left a little bit of wiggle room. They can't absolutely, if they say it's absolute, which is empirical, then they're done. You know what I mean? They're done for. So they got to leave that little bit of wiggle room. Always.
Binary. It's either
No,
open or closed.
It's an open system. A closed system doesn't receive anything from outside of the system. We get sunlight from the sun, among other things. Therefore, open system. It is currently argued by people smarter than I, but the general consensus is that it's an open system. This, however, is a problem for Nathan and his favorite catchphrase. Let me say first off, if knowledge of the second law of thermodynamics was a 0 to 100 scale, I know approximately 0.00000000001 on that scale. However, that's exponentially more than Nathan knows, and he'll never admit that his entropy nonsense doesn't apply to open systems because that would immediately kill his favorite thing to say. And then what else would he have?
One last housekeeping question. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Bingo! I've got a bingo here! Bingo! Man, he couldn't help himself, could he? Gas pressure, in most cases, requires a container to press against to create the pressure. Atmospheric pressure does not. All it requires is gravity. And good thing for us that exists, because otherwise, we'd all be dead. So that rounds out the housekeeping questions from IcePick. Now, if you'll allow me, I have a few questions for Flurfs to answer, and I'll make it quick. If the sun is small and local, what mechanism causes its orbit around the North Pole to change every 6 months to the opposing tropic to cause the seasons in the North and South Hemisphere? Speaking of hemispheres, why does the moon look upside down in Australia? Speaking of Australia, why can't you see Polaris in Australia? Speaking of a small and local sun, if it is small and local, the farther its orbit gets from the North Pole, the faster it would have to travel to maintain the 24-hour day. Does the sun move faster across the sky during the summer in the southern hemisphere, or does it maintain a constant speed? If you like my content and you'd like to see more of it, please give the video a like and the channel a subscribe, and leave me a comment. I always like to read them. And make sure to tune in next time. And until then, As always, have a good day.